Hey there, everybody. Welcome back. If you remember, last week we had the first part of our second episode, which was about is English English or is English secretly French? Now, that discussion ran a little bit long, so we're going to have the second part of it today. We hope you enjoy it. It's going to start right now.
Johnson, do you have other questions or thoughts
Yeah, other
about
questions or
the video?
observations?
Yes, because after this video, I do some kind of research. But
Mhm.
what would you suggest or recommend that your new students or the beginners that uh, let them know how that we know the English of the know the history English is important?
That's a fair question. I think that it's a hard thing for a lot of people to accept. Is like, why do I need to know about that? Why is that important?
For me, I think it is very interesting. So yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it's necessarily all that important unless you're using this knowledge to inform how you're developing a study plan. Okay, so I think a key thing to remember is what he said about the vocabulary that we actually use in everyday conversation. Most of it, the 100 most common words that we use in English, they're all Germanic. Which means they're not the really sophisticated stuff that you'll find in the dictionary, like all those Latin derived words that are mostly academic or literary or scientific or whatever. So, like, you can be, I forget, what is the number of words you need to know in English to be functionally fluent? It's like 800?
800.
Something like that?
No, 800?
It's not that
You
many.
mean in Taiwan English?
No, I mean in English in general.
In
For most everyday conversation.
yeah.
2000.
It's not that many. I want to say it's 800, but don't quote me on that. I'd have to confirm that.
Yeah.
I remember someone saying that in college. One of my college professors talking about, like, we have all these words in English, but like, how many of them do you actually need to know? Not that many. Unless you want to. Yeah. So I guess, like, the key thing is, and it was a topic that Mark and I were discussing the other day, which is when it comes to vocabulary, what kind of recommendations do you make for students who are wanting to expand their vocabulary? Because at a certain point, you're going to start learning words that even native speakers don't know. You know? I want to say that there's something like 170,000 words total accumulated in the English language that you can find in various dictionaries. You don't need to know all those. I'm not gonna know all of those.
Yeah. I wanted to comment on that, the vocabulary, like how learning the history of English can help a person learn.
Yeah.
Remember in the video there is, because Norman do we call him Norman French?
Norman French.
Okay. Because Norman French was like the nobles or the upper class, they spoke that language, whereas the lower class and other people,
Old English. They spoke.
Old English. So now we have like two. In the case of in the video, they give it. This guy gave an example of beef and cow.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So like the normal people, the normal people. Do I say normal or lower class people? The
Working class. The
working class.
Yeah.
They would, they use the word cow, and then the Norman, nobles, the upper class, they use the word beef, right? Because they were actually the one who had the luxury of eating.
It wasn't something intentional.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the rich people were saying like, "Ooh, we're not going to call that a cow because we're rich."
Yeah.
It was more like they spoke French, and that was just their word for it. Which at one time those would have been recognized as separate languages.
Yeah.
But over many hundreds of years, the word beef has been incorporated into English as an adjective. We don't use it Well, no, we can also use it as a noun too.
Beef.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are
like
you having for dinner? Beef. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
The meat of the cow.
The meat of the cow.
Yeah.
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 So that was interesting.
That is, yeah. Things like that I'm quite interested in. And they also, there's other examples of that too. Like, they mentioned, gosh, what were the other ones?
I have notes.
You have to, oh yeah. We took notes.
We took notes. But this is more about the dialects of French.
Oh,
We
we mentioned,
we should save the second one for like later.
right. Here's another one. And this is actually three. It's three words that are actually all the same word. Okay. Now, well, it's not, okay, not exactly the same because cow is an English word and beef is a French word.
Yeah.
Okay. There's also the word corpse. Okay. Corpse is an English word that comes originally from, I think, French? Probably French. Okay. So, corpse in modern English means a dead body. C-O-R-P-S-E. A dead body. Okay.
Body.
Now, that word comes from Latin corpus. C-O-R-P-U-S. Which just means a body. Like the English word body. Corpus. Body.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean a dead body, just any body. Okay. Which we use in modern English in certain contexts like a corpus, a body of work. Like a, how would you define that? Because you've gone to graduate school, so you use that term.
A corpus of data,
Yeah.
like a corpus of
Like a
language
collection,
data,
right?
a collection.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Then there's also the word core, which is spelled C-O-R-P-S. The P and S are silent because it's French. Now, core means body, but like an organization. For example, the United States Peace Corps. The organization, the body of people who are engaged in building peace.
Yeah.
Okay. It's the same word. It's just the Latin word corpus for body. But depending on the context, we will use the English version, which is a corrupted version of Latin, the French version, or the straight Latin version that hasn't been corrupted over time.
I just realized in English we also have the word corpse, like corporation, short for corporation.
Yeah, C-O-R-P.
C-O-R-P.
That root, no matter where you see it, I'll put an asterisk on that because there's always an exception, right? But wherever you see that root, C-O-R-P, body, something about a body. A corporation is a legal person. A person that you create for legal purposes to shift some of legal liability off of yourself onto a fictitious person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
I have taught. I have shown. Who was it? So some of my one of the practices that I would do with my student is guess if this word is French. Like, because we would with some students we would look at the etymology, like where did the word come from, and I think it was with Zoe, and anyway, so we would like see a new word, and then at the later on, like Zoe would just be like, "Does it come from French?
Is that French?
Yeah, is that French?" And then I was like, "Well, let's look it up." And we did it, and then like, yeah, Old French. I'm like, oh, okay. So I think they started to like pick up on the cues or like some sort of yeah. But then again, like if you identify like certain components or certain parts or certain suffixes, prefixes, then you kind of also have to like memorize it in order to make sense of
You
that
do,
word.
yeah. I mean, I do that a lot in my
So-
classes too. I use etymology. Maybe it doesn't always work, but as a teacher, one of the things that I figured out is that we remember things that are funny or weird.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of English words have funny or weird etymologies.
Right.
Gymnasium comes from the Greek meaning to exercise naked. And in fact, what we shorten the word gymnasium to gym, right? Okay, gymnos is naked. So literally, we've removed the part of the word gymnasium that means exercise, and we only use the part that means naked.
Mm-hmm.
There is a type of there are two types of seed bear. Oh gosh, this is biology. I'm a little out of my element here. There are two types of flowering plants that produce flowers.
Yeah.
Angiosperms, gymnosperms. Gymnosperms means they're naked, like the seed is uncovered.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's one. Like, it makes it easy to remember, right? Like, it's a funny
It
thing. Like,
makes
oh my
sense.
gosh.
I mean, when you're at the gym, you're like half naked, so.
Yeah. The word enthusiasm. What is enthusiasm? How would you define that word, Johnson?
Actually, I don't know what enthusiasm means.
Oh, like, or enthusiastic. Like, I'm really excited. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, okay.
I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Like, yes. Like, do you want to go? Like, yes, I'm ready to go. I'm
Yeah.
enthusiastic. Okay. Enthusiasm comes from the Greek verb, which I don't know how to pronounce correctly, but it's something like enthusiazine or something like that. But it means to be possessed by a god.
Oh.
Oh.
Like, for a god to go inside of you and take control of your body.
Uh-huh.
Anyway.
Oh.
That's
Okay.
that's why English is so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess language history of language. I guess it can be useful in some way.
Yeah.
Um.
It's not useful by itself. It's useful when it's paired with other things.
Yeah. Like.
By itself, it's just like a little hobby that you might have.
that some might find annoying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yesterday you were talking about a word that was borrowed from Arabic and it went into
Apricot. Do you like apricots, Johnson?
What is apricot?
What is an apricot? You might have to translate that. I don't. No,
I-
I've never had an apricot personally, so I don't know.
I actually don't know what apricot means.
Oh, you have to look it up, I guess.
I have to look it up. So wait as I look it up.
But it's a type of fruit. So the funny thing about the word apricot is that it comes from a Latin word, which is normal. There's a lot of English words that come from Latin, but it did not come directly from Latin. It didn't go straight from Italy to England. It was adopted, I want to say, by the Greeks. So the Greeks adopted the word apricot from the Romans. And then somehow the Arabs adopted that word and incorporated it into Arabic. And then it found its way back through Spanish and then French and then into English.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so apricot is a fruit. In Chinese we call it 杏子.
Okay.
Which
so
is, I guess
to
it's
make
a
you
rare
remember
food that we don't really eat.
that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I don't know. I know I've never had an apricot. I have no idea what they taste like, or
Yeah.
I'm not even sure what they look like.
A little kind of like a peach.
Like a peach.
Yeah, this is what it looks like.
Oh, I wonder if it's just a type of peach.
Yeah.
Maybe you can share the photo picture down in the comments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
we'll like insert
We'll
it.
we're
in
going
the
to
screen
insert
here.
it into the video. So like, here's an apricot right here. I don't know
Yeah.
if you can see it.
Yeah.
Right here, apricot.
Another example of Arabic long word. Well, how do we say this? It's not a long word per se, but like words that came from Arabic or the Arabic languages. Algorithm.
Yeah.
So AL. That's like in Arabic.
Algorithm, algebra.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what algebra literally means. I used to know, but it's al means the, like in Arabic, al is their version of the, like the definite article.
Mm-hmm.
But I forget what it originally means. But I remember learning that in high school, that algebra came from Arabic, which was a side note, like, because at the time when I was in high school, that was very near in time to the 9/11 attacks. So
Mm-hmm.
politically, at that time, there were a lot of complicated feelings toward Arabic people, some of which was racist, just so we're clear on that. But I do remember that, like, when that was discussed, there were some people who were very bothered by that. That just to know that algebra originally came from Arabic, or from the Arabic world. Or, okay, here's another example. They did a poll where they asked, I think it was parents. They asked parents, do you support teaching Arabic numerals in school?
I heard about this.
Okay.
Somewhere.
Do you know what Arabic numerals are, Johnson?
No.
Okay, so the way that we write numbers in the modern world, like
It's like
1,
0, 1,
2, 3,
Yeah.
those symbols come from Arabic originally.
Mm-hmm.
They're called Arabic numerals.
Okay.
Now, they put that into a poll where they asked parents, like, do you support teaching Arabic numerals in school? And they got, like, the number of responses that they got where people were saying things like, no, I don't support teaching religion in school. It's like, okay, clearly you don't know what we're talking about here. Clearly the point of the poll was to demonstrate that most people don't know what they're talking about, and point made.
Okay.
Johnson, do you have other comments or questions?
No.
Not at this time, that's okay.
We
One of the things that
yeah.
he mentions here from the video where he was talking about, like, did you see how French has started taking words back from English to use as slang? He uses the one people. Did you see that in the video about how the word people has a different meaning in French slang?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
Because people is not an English word. People is from Latin populi, I believe, which is related to the word popular, I think. But I'm not for sure about that. But yeah, I thought that was interesting because the French people have a tendency to be very proud of their language. I mean, there's even like an institute in France that their purpose is to like control the development and the way that the French language is properly used.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They take it very seriously. Whereas in English, we don't have, like in the English-speaking world, we don't have anything like that. The language just evolves naturally on its own.
Mm-hmm.
In any case, it was just interesting how a lot of people in France get, I guess apparently sometimes they get annoyed by French or by English slang coming into French. But then they find out like, oh, but that's actually just a French word that's just coming back.
Yeah. So in French,
Yeah.
the slang means famous, like celebrities, famous people, celebrities.
People. Yeah, if you're a people in France, it means that you're a celebrity.
That is very interesting. You're like finding out that you're just like another word, another what is the adjective here? Another oh man, like I don't know the word. Like I'm not sure how you could basically like just like another English word, another foreign word. And and then you realize that no, that's actually it came from us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that's slightly different, but it's like discovering that the words corpse, core, and corpus are the same word, ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they have different definitions if you look them up in the dictionary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if there are examples like that in... I feel like there are examples like this between Chinese and Japanese. Like, we borrow some words from Japanese, and then it became, like, part of our vocabulary, and then it went back.
But, you know, I do remember looking up, because I was curious a while back, because I was wanting to compare what percentage of English words are foreign in origin compared to what percentage of Chinese words are foreign in origin.
Yeah.
And it's like a mirror reversal. It's night and day. Like in the English language, about 10% of our words are originally Old English words. The other 90% are borrowed in from elsewhere. In Chinese, if I remember correctly, it's the exact opposite. It's something like only a very small percentage, like 2 or 3% of Chinese words are borrowed in from another language.
Yeah.
That I guess.
So I think that Japanese borrow a lot of percentage from Chinese.
Right. To me, it seems more like Chinese has been more of a donor language than a recipient language.
Japanese also has borrowed a lot of word from English.
True, yeah.
It seems like there is like a more traditional native way of saying a word, and then there is another which is like a transliteration of an English word for like in Japanese.
But here's another observation. China has been the dominant culture in its region of the world for basically all of recorded history. English culture did not become dominant, if you want to call it that, until, honestly, like the end of World War One. Like, the end of World War One was the first time that an international treaty was written in a language other than French. Or, well, that's not true. It was the first time that, like, so the Treaty of Versailles that ended World War One was written in both French and English, which was, it was kind of like a sign of how important the English-speaking world had become over the preceding 100 to 150 years. Whereas for a long time, France was the dominant power in Europe.
I guess since the 5th century.
Since let's see, when would France have become dominant? Like, I'm thinking back to like Charlemagne, Charles the Great, in the year 800. He's the one who built the first French Empire, but it fell apart right after him because the difference between the Roman world and the Germanic world, there were language differences, but there were also legal differences. So legally in the Roman world, when you would pass wealth from one generation on to the next, the goal was to maintain the prestige of the family. So most of the inheritance would go to one, like the oldest, and then the rest of the kids would get a smaller amount. But that was not the case in the Germanic world, at least at the time when the Germans were moving into what used to be Roman territory. The Germans would always divide their wealth equally between all three kids. Or between all the kids, or all the sons. Charlemagne had 3 sons, and when he died, the his empire was split into 3, which weakened it, and they ended up fighting each other for many hundreds of years. But basically from about that point, France would go through ups and downs, but it was kind of the most, I guess, the best organized state in Europe, if you want to call it that. Yeah. But England was just a backwater, what we would call a backwater. Like, no one would learn English. Like, why would you do that? Yeah. At least until the British Empire became ascendant. Then people started learning English. Yeah. It's like what we said. I don't remember if it wasn't in the last class, but it was one of the previous talks that we had where it was how did English become dominant? I mean, it's not magic or anything. It's just money and power. Yeah.
I also read somewhere that like the reason why English became dominant, the reason why English became a language that is easier to learn, or like something that that contributes to the popularity of English, is the fact that it actually doesn't have what is it called? Not the case, is it?
Oh, it's not inflected?
Not inflected. Yeah. So if you learn any European languages, there are 6 inflections. From I, we, you, he, she, it, or he, she, they.
Yeah.
He, she, it. Anyway, so like these 6 different pronouns, they will have 6 different
Like
verb forms.
Ways that you conjugate the verb to change
Yeah.
it. Like in Spanish, you don't even have to say the pronoun.
You don't have to say the pronoun. You don't have to say the subject. You just go ahead and use that verb, like hablo means I speak. Habla,
I'll use like the very first verb that you learn in Spanish class in America is the verb to have. And in Spanish, to have is tener, T-E-N-E-R. So, and that we learn that one to demonstrate, to showcase like the conjugation, like how you don't need to use the pronouns. In Spanish, I is yo, Y-O. Okay. So when you say I have, you say yo tengo, T-E-N-G-O, tengo. Now if it's you have, tienes, you, T-U, tu, tienes, you have.
Yeah.
He has, él tiene.
Except the T will be like D, like DNA.
Right. We tenemos, nosotros tenemos.
Yeah, I never move on to the plural.
Okay.
I just got lost.
The point being, like, you don't actually have to say the pronoun. You don't have to say yo tango. You just say tango, because there's only one way that you write it when it's yo tango. You don't have to say tu tienes. You can say tienes. Tienes un lápiz. You have a pencil?
Right.
Yeah.
I think the lack of, is it called conjugation or inflection?
I mean, English does have
What is
inflection.
it?
It's just, it's disappeared over time.
Yeah, like, I mean, now you have, like,
Okay, so like in English, the irregular verbs, or like, for example, give, have, swim. Like, we don't say I swimmed, we say I swam.
Oh, you're talking about the past tense.
Yeah, I'm talking about like, so in terms of, you have, in English, we have 2 kinds of verbs, strong verbs and weak verbs. Okay, strong verbs are the irregular verbs, the ones where you do not add ed to the end to make it past tense.
Yeah.
Okay, the weak verbs are everything else. Walk, walked. Jump, jumped.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not English. That's a French thing. Adding endings onto the end of words is a Romance thing, like from the Romance languages. In Old English, basically all of the verbs, to make them past tense, you wouldn't add an ending to the word, you would change the inside of the word.
Yeah.
So like that's, but I do think it's easier to just add the ending. That is definitely easier.
I told my students like 80% of a word of the verbs, you just go ahead and add ed to it. Like if you're not sure, just add ed. Like I've seen cases where people they're supposed to use a different verb, but they use ed instead, and it was fine.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And the trend over time is that all the verbs in English are changing slowly to the weak form. I'll use this. This is an example that I remember from college. You're going to go swimming and you go up on the board that hangs out over the water. You bounce a couple of times and then you, what do we call that? Dive. There you go. What's the past tense of dive?
Dive.
See, like a younger person, a younger native speaker of English is going to say probably dived. I dived in. An older native speaker of English is going to say dove. I dove in. D-O-V-E. Okay. Which one is correct? Well, technically, dove is correct. But because language is arbitrary and doesn't really matter, and it changes over time, It's just people are changing the, and also because dove is also the way that we spell the bird dove. So that's probably also playing a role in it too. But that's a verb that is currently right now in transition, if it hasn't already transitioned.
But that's the thing that like educators have been not fighting over, but just like some believe that, you know, when it comes to grammar, we should have a prescriptive we should treat it as a prescriptive kind of thing. So like these are the rules, you follow the rules, right? And then the other group of teachers, they believe that grammar should be descriptive, which is this is how people use it. You know, maybe they go to online, get a lot of data, and then like this is how the people use it, or like the majority of people use it this way, and we should teach like the majority of the way. So that's like the two things: prescriptive versus descriptive.
Where do you fall in that debate?
I feel like I fall more in the area of descriptive grammar.
Personally, I feel like that's the only rational way to be. I mean, taking a prescriptive approach to grammar, to me, is like trying to hold sand into a ball in your hands. You can't do it. The sand doesn't want to stay in one shape.
And like I say, you know, like there are exceptions to everything. If there's a rule, there's an exception.
Yeah.
Grammar is no... Yeah,
and I think it says a lot about your personality, about which kind you prefer. Like, some people do not like ambiguity. They don't like not knowing what is the definite, yes, 100% correct answer.
Yeah, they need like the clear...
But then when you hear that, like, oh, there is no correct answer. What are you talking about? Oh, I can't know. Like, there has to be a correct answer.
Yeah, they would just like disregard it as like, oh, well, if there's no correct answer, then either like you're wrong or the question doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily the case. But that also makes me wonder, like, because English, in the video, it says something about, I don't know, Johnson, if you have, I don't know if you have seen a chart that says like about 30% of the words, like 25 something percent of the words are French, of English vocabulary. Are French, and then like 20 something is Germanic, and then you have another like Nordic.
Yeah, like
right.
This,
which is about like 20, you know, like that. So in the case of dove, I actually don't know what the past participle of dive is. Diven. Dove.
I dove in.
Just plus en.
I have doved in. I have dove.
I have dived. I have. Oh wow!
Right, dive, dove, diven, rise, rose, risen. If we follow that pattern,
I have to go into the etymology dictionary for that.
Anyways.
It could be there's some older forms of that word that have disappeared because none of them sound correct.
Yeah, but I wonder, you know, because of the history of the English language. Is that a blessing or a disguise for English learners?
A blessing or a curse?
Oh, sorry, yeah. A blessing or a curse for English learners. As in, you know, sure, you have to follow certain rules because that's the influence of other languages. But then we don't know. Like, we wouldn't, like, we won't.
Sure.
We don't know. So...
Yeah.
And I think like all these, you know, if people follow rules and then they find that sometimes there are some exceptions or discrepancies, and then they'll be like, wait, but is that confusing? Or, you know, I don't know. Johnson, what do you think? Like as an English learner, for me, I was frustrated with it. I'm like, I just had a rule and this doesn't apply. So what's going on here? But then later I realized, well, that's just part of it. It's messy, you know. But Johnson, what do you think?
I think that's why English is so interesting because there are always a rule, but there are sometimes no rules.
That's
personally, I love that. No. I love questions that don't have an answer. Those are the best ones.
Yeah.
I mean, a question that has an answer, like, okay, great, okay, next.
Yeah.
Just move on from it. Like, but a question where you just have to like wrestle with it and like mull it over and turn it over and look at it from different sides. Those are my favorite ones.
It just occurred to me because I'm like, as compared to the history of English, I'm more interested in the history of Mandarin or other Chinese languages. So in Mandarin, if we wanted to express kind of the past something equivalent to the past participle of English, so you add like have and then verb past participle tense. There are two ways we could say this. In the southern China, we'll say 有 and then with a verb. So 有 is have. So like, have you like, I have had dinner, 我有吃晚餐, like that. But then in northern China, probably northern China, they will use another word called 过. 过. Like, so I would say 我吃过晚餐 instead.
Okay.
And I think that was a characteristic borrowed from Manchuria, which was the language spoken
Right.
in the north.
Yeah.
Yeah, like where the northeastern China part of China is. And now
Yeah.
both features, they exist in both features exist in modern Mandarin, but because the southern languages are kind of considered, like a lot of them are considered dialects and kind of have lower status, social status. So when we say like 有 versus 有 plus a verb, people will say that, oh, that's not a correct way of saying, like, you're being affected by the dialects. Like the correct way should be verb 过. Yeah, that's how when we're like being trained to teach Mandarin, they will always be like, the teachers will always be like, no, don't say 有, because that's how Taiwanese people we will say that, because Taiwanese has that feature, has the 有 structure.
Yeah.
And we'll always be corrected into saying like, no, 过, like 过. But that's just part of
That reminds me of like, okay, even my favorite English teachers, they would do the thing where they would tell you like, oh, you don't ever put a preposition at the end of an English sentence. That's improper. That's like, not good writing. You don't say, where are you at? You say, where are you? Okay, well, what about where are you from? Because we say that all the time.
Where are you from?
And if we don't put the preposition at the end of the sentence, then our only other option is to say, from where are you? Which sounds weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
weird.
that's not okay. So the reason they say that is a Latin rule. In Latin, you cannot end a sentence with a preposition. But English does not have that rule. We never have. There was a time period where the academics in the English-speaking world, they believed that English was an inferior language, that in order to make it better, they needed to make it more like Latin. So they started imposing Latin grammatical rules on English, one of which is no prepositions at the end of a sentence. Now, most of the time, you don't need to put a preposition at the end of a sentence. But if you have a rule, which is that it's always incorrect to put a question at the end of a sentence, then you end up with weird phrasing like, from where are you?
Yeah, I think that sentence actually has ruined that. Like,
what?
Where are you from?
Oh, yeah.
Because that's not one of the first sentences that we learn, right? And then I'm thinking about like, there's so many times that I was trying to teach relative clause, which is what is it called, relative clause, right? No, that's not a relative clause. No, it is a relative clause.
I'm not for sure.
Like I like the girl who is blah 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 blah.
Oh,
right?
okay.
Yeah, but then if that clause has a preposition, you're supposed to move that preposition to the front, right before the WH, and that is such a tricky thing to teach.
Yeah,
because it's just like, first of all, like how you have to anticipate that you're gonna say the preposition, and move it to the front when
Yeah.
you were saying it. But then also some students will say like, but I said this all the time. Like, where are you where are you off to? Like, where are you going?
Yeah.
Right? Like, so yeah. That's why I was saying, like, I feel like that's one of the things that has ruined has just ruined it for a lot of English learners. Yeah.
Well, we've been going for an hour. We should wrap up. We should let Johnson go about the rest of his evening. Well, Johnson, is there...
I think the topic today is very interesting.
Well, that's good. That's good. It's funny because we were actually going to try to go shorter this time, but we were going to try to keep it under 30 minutes. But we actually have 2. We may split this into 2 episodes. Who knows?
Part 1 and part 2.
Yeah. Well, Johnson, we will let you go. But is there any other question or thought or comment that you had before we leave?
No, because we are talking about a part of the English history today, and I have found a video that I think I can share with you, and you can put down in your comments, and you can share with other students.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Yeah. We would love that.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, thank you so much. Well, okay.
No problem.
We'll do our sign off. This has been Clazz in the Woods, and if anybody sees this, we hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for joining us, Johnson. Hey there, everybody. We really hope you've enjoyed this 2-part discussion on is English English or is English French. This is the end of that topic, so next week we will be joined by Johnson again, but to discuss something different. So we're excited to see you. We'll hope to have you back. So you guys have a great week. We'll see you next time.